It is
As you can
Saturday.
see today, we have matching hats. Well, almost. I stole his cowboy hat. Now we're matching.
That's right.
To be honest, though, I like this a whole lot better. What do you think, Harry?
I think you should just wear the cowboy hat.
Oh, well, see, I told you.
I don't know. I think she looks good in the. That's a bucket hat, right?
Yeah, I told you that this bucket has sentimental value, but actually,
I think she looks great in the cowboy hat.
I look good as
and
a
yet,
cowboy.
and I'm going to lose another hat.
And she
Yeah,
looks
I'm
better
gonna
than
say
you in the cowboy hat.
I know. Well, and that's pretty much true for everything. She looks better in everything I do. She has the same problem that her mother has, because her mother is always prettier than me, and that's a win for me. And I'm sorry for her.
You know what? Every time I step into this house, I get complimented, but also simultaneously blamed for everything that goes wrong.
Well, you know, children are the number one leading reason for divorce. It's true. Nobody's. Did I say that out loud? I did say that out loud, and I really do kind of mean it. Yeah.
Hey, I'm fantastic. I don't know. I brought you guys closer together. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's only because we had to get back to back to fight the two of you off. What is it about, by the way, children math that means 2 parents and 1 child is an advantage? 2 parents and 2 children is somehow outmanned. I do not know how that works, but it works that way.
I've heard
You have to understand that there is something called toddler property rights.
Oh.
Anything I can see, touch you.
If it's yours, it's mine. If it's mine, it's mine. And if it's broken, it's yours.
Yeah. And get fixing.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you still saying that I have grown children that occasionally operate as toddlers, and I empower them to do so?
That's right. You love it.
Oh.
You
Do
love
I
it
now?
because you love being responsible.
Oh.
Oh no. We promised we would not do therapy openly.
That's right. That's right. Why don't we talk about investigation and inspection?
As long as it does not include the inner workings of my brain, heart, or emotions, yeah, sure.
There will be no interstitial spaces today.
Oh, so nothing on the inside of me. Outstanding. I don't like that.
So
You and your interstitial spaces, I don't know why that tickles you so much. I'm glad it does, but dang.
because like there are $5 words and there are like $15 words, and interstitial spaces is got to be at least $15.
You think so?
Yeah.
If you leverage it right, it can be worth like, I don't know. And we'll talk about this today. How an interstitial cavity can be worth $400,000.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah. I even have pictures of it.
So why don't I open us up here?
Pictures.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh, you have a PNP now?
I do.
That's so helpful. That was broken last time. Just
Well,
for
is it a
reference.
PNP or is it?
You have a different source.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to
That's
turn
good.
that. Yeah.
That's good.
My switcher's working. That's what happens when my switcher works.
Yeah, that was broken last time. But anyways, okay, so let's kick us off here. So we're not going to be on here for very, very long, but we want to say happy Saturday morning. And if you are a restoration owner or any kind of person who runs their own schedule, most of your thinking probably occurs on Saturday to Sunday. So we want to give you something to think about, right? So here's what I kind of realized, all right? When I was creating this class, the original title was actually Inspection and Dispute Resolution. And the reason inspection. And the reason that I changed the name to Investigation is because, in my opinion, as I handle documentation every single day and prepare trial binders, and the documentation is coming from the restoration company, I feel like there is a huge difference in inspection, which is telling me what happened, and investigation, which is telling me why it happened and why the scope of work when applying both of these theories is so drastically different in the resulting outcome. So I want to get these propeller headed's opinion on this, because that's how I view it, at least just from my documentation perspective, my administrative perspective. But I feel like their input here would be greatly appreciated.
And we're on the hot seat again.
Yes, always.
What's with that?
Okay, well, I think that that investigation and inspection are used interchangeably and they're not the same thing. Let me give you an example. This is the most simple example I've ever had. I had an umpire gig not too long ago, and one of the appraisers wanted the entire roof, and the other appraiser wanted zero roof. I mean, that's the only thing that was really in the file, and that's what they wanted. Okay. So we had some engineering that disagreed with each other, and like dueling engineers that see the same thing and decide drastically different things. The only thing they agreed on, that the peril was the same. So after I inspected the loss and after the appraisers left, I went and walked the street and knocked on 10 doors and asked the people on that street, did you file an insurance claim? Did you have roof damage? And 9 of the 10 had filed an insurance claim. And 1 of the 10 didn't file an insurance claim because they didn't want to have their insurance canceled, but also had damage. So what did I do with that just basic inspection investigation tool? I completely recolored the loss, because at this point, if that roof wasn't damaged, it would be an extreme outlier, wouldn't it? And that changed the outcome, because I understood that the whole neighborhood got racked to some degree, and almost all the damage was identical. And that's the difference. Most people just take some data and say this is true because blank. They don't work on having double bound arguments. They don't look for other ratifying things. They have to go, they have to go deeper. Sweet, you handled an appraisal a while back that was a fire. And who did you go talk to about that fire in your investigation?
Oh, gee. Well, we brought the code enforcement in. At the end of the day, we brought in several of our subcontractors, and where we were having questions on the panel about whether something was cleanable or not, we went ahead and contacted 3 local companies. And like, for example, in the event that there were windows, the windows, you can clean the outside, you just can't clean the inside. And you can't determine whether or not the chemistry of the fire affects all of the seals, all the bushings, all the brushes, things like that. So the question was, it looks like a window. The window goes up and down. You can clean the outside of it and make it look like it looked before, mostly, by the way. Although I will suggest that windows, granite, and solid surface countertops, if you don't own a gloss meter, you probably should, because usually the chemicals that clean those surfaces oftentimes take a portion of those surfaces off. Sorry, nerd alert.
Where does one buy what'd you call that?
It's a gloss meter. And I will give David Myers the credit for that.
Gloss
David
meter?
Myers of Certidry in Wisconsin turned me on to gloss meter.
Such thing. Gloss meter.
There is a gloss meter. I do have one. They're about $300, and they are absolutely outstanding. But anyway, going back to that, are we going to change the window? Are we going to change the appearance of the window? Are we going to change the short-term functionality of the window? Are we going to change the long-term viability and functionality of the window while it sits and corrodes? So we contacted 3 companies and said, would you take the window out, take it back, ultrasonically clean it, break it down, re-lubricate it the way it's supposed to, put it back in, and then warranty it? And surprises, nobody was interested in that particular venture. What happened? We got really, really fuzzy. Miss Isabeth, do you know what happened?
It's me. Is it me?
I think it may be you and your light.
Oh, always.
Can you turn
me.
down that very bright screen? Look at it. Watch it go fuzzy. It does not light up light.
I'm working on it.
Just focusing on that's out in
Yeah.
front of you.
Here, I'll do
You think?
this.
But
Look at me being disruptive.
Again.
Sweet. There's one.
So anyway, yes, that's what we did.
There's one other thing you did on that loss, though. You went and saw the fire department.
Oh yeah, them too.
And why did you do that?
Well, we went and saw the fire department so that we could, number one, get their information on where they had to actually put out the fire, where they actually wetted down those areas, because then that links back into what can I do with my wiring? We have not only smoke, but we have water on top of, for example, in this instance, jacketed wires. So NEMA says that I need to replace my jacketed wires because you can't predict how the water and or the smoke residues are going to affect the ongoing viability and stability of that. And we all know that when wires fail, they generally tend to burn houses down. In fact, that's what caused that one, was we had a wire and a wall fail. Oopsies.
Yeah. Did you also, because this is one of the facts that I love the most, is did you ask the fire department how much water they put on the property?
I did. Actually, I asked them. It was a tanker, so you can do it if you get it off if you get off a hydrant. A lot of times they don't know, they don't count. But it was a 2.5 tanker fire, so we figured out that we had about 4,000 gallons that went on to that, and that does make a difference. How much water went? And by the way, I just had a fire, and I showed you we're talking about inspection, right? So here's a picture of one of my cavity inspections on a fire recently, and that cavity, knowing that water's back behind there, knowing that water's inside of that area.
You mean in the interstitial spaces?
In the interstitial spaces, yes. You enjoy that way too much, David. I'm just saying.
You spent most of your life working on interstitial spaces. I just never have heard anybody who's more obsessed with interstitial spaces than you.
No, you. Just saying. Good Lord.
You're very gifted. You know what's going on behind the walls.
Well, but that makes a difference. In that particular instance, you can laugh all you want, but about 20 spaces like this, and I wish I could make it much easier for you to see. The quality of the video is not tremendous. But if you looked at the outside of that room did not look damaged. 99% of the people would walk into that room, and you know what they would do? They'd say, oh, I can clean the walls. All right, replace the ceiling fan and be fine. And yet that's what was behind the walls. And it wasn't just here. Nobody pathed the fire through the structure. So we have, and this is a very definition of a difference between an individual inspection and an investigation. An investigation needs to know not just what's wet, but where wet goes to dry. If I have mold in one side of a house, an inspection says, I have mold in one side of a house, I can see it. An investigation says, gee, I wonder, is it in the rest of the house? Is it on the contents to get into the HVAC system?
Isn't there something in the ISCRC documents that says the restorer may have to look deep in the structure?
I think you're thinking of the ASTM. I think it's D778 or 7338. I forget which one it is. But it says that the restorer is responsible for finding hidden damages. And you know what? Really, that's a repeat of OSHA. Even if you go back to the most basic things in OSHA, OSHA requires you to find work and a place of work that's free from known hazards. All right. And when it talks about respiratory protection in 910 132 D1 D2, it actually identifies if you know there's a hazard or you anticipate it, you're responsible for inspecting it.
Wait, can we pull up the reference? You think it's? I don't think it's D778. That has to do
D7338. It's going to be in our. It would be in our normal folders. Should be in our reference section.
D7338.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So standard guide for assessment of fungal growth in buildings. Do you know what section it's?
I'd have to pull it up.
I have it up right here.
You have it up. If you'll pull it up on the network.
Oh, where?
Yes, in our network. It should be in our resources file.
I'm gonna pull it up now. Now I'm being a stickler because I need to know where this is.
It's talking about microbial investigation because that's the standard that governs microbial investigation.
Right.
But it gives you permission. So OSHA says you got to provide a place of work that's safe for your people and work that's safe for your people. Well, how do you know if you're doing work you don't need to do if you don't sample? You can presume it's there and put your people in PPE, or your other option is, you know what? I've seen it before. In fact, I've seen it before often enough that I think there's probably a problem with it. And if there's a problem with it, guess what? I need to protect my people. So we can go through the effort of sampling and investigating it until we know, or we can presume it exists. That's what OSHA requires us to do. And it's like that, guys, with all known hazards: lead, asbestos, silica, nuisance dust, gross debris. If you happen to be in a house that you have a kitchen burn, you guys ever think about the chemistry that's in the chemicals in a kitchen when it burns? Think about all the chemistry that's underneath the sink. I had a guy who drag racing as a hobby in Wisconsin, and there was all kinds of his lubricants and admixtures for his oil and all the mechanical solvents and stuff, and they were involved in the fire. And you know what? The inside of the house looked fine except for the laundry room. The rest was just going to be cleaned. By the time we sampled that house, we figured that when up the wall, there was a common wall between the house and the garage, right? So it came through the garage, went up the wall, into the attic, and across the entire attic in the house. And then it came down and pressurized into the wall cavities. Upstairs looked perfect, pristine. I could not sample damage in general out of the upstairs. And yet, every single one of the wall cavities that had any type of penetration or opening all had a variety of different chemicals that were down in it that required the house to basically be gutted and cleaned. The difference between an inspection and investigation. And, you know, I can't say that I've never had somebody suggest that that's profit motive oriented. All right. You just want to find all this stuff. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. And in reality, I'm just not letting you make my mountain into a molehill out of fear that you're going to be upset about it.
Yeah. Let me give an example from some stuff I dealt with on investigation. One of the most common things I'm ever asked when I do depositions on large losses that are multi-story, really high-rise specifically, is they'll say, why is it more expensive to do drywall work on the 7th floor than the 2nd?
Right.
And what we do is, like, for example, this one we did in Tampa, you could not get into this building without going through security. So
one of those buildings.
So security had to put you on the elevator.
Yep.
And you had to wait in line to get security to let you on that elevator. Honey knows we're on TV.
Tax paid.
Yeah. Anyway, but so what we do is we put nail bags on somebody, and we give them a 5-gallon bucket with about 30 pounds worth of stuff in it. And then we have them go through that process over and over again, going to each floor. And then that creates the labor burden basically for each floor. And it's time and it's time. And I mean, they also have to leave for lunch. They get breaks. I mean, all that. So
right.
What it wound up was, if you're working on the 12th floor, you actually have a labor burden where you're losing about 2 hours and 20 minutes out of your workday every week, every day. So that extended the period of construction on those areas, or you had to add more labor in those areas because of that. And that doesn't seem like a very big deal, but you know, in the same note, we did an investigation on an appraisal I was handling, and we found that there was no parking. So everybody that worked there had to pay $20 a day for parking across the street.
That happens, man.
That's $118,000 worth of parking.
Right.
Then we also couldn't put a dumpster by the place or a Connex or anything like that. So now we had to do time to pick the stuff up and walk across the bridge to the building. And that ended up being, all told, almost 12% of the budget for the entire job.
Right.
In other words, if we hadn't have done that, what would have happened? Somebody would have lost their shirt completely doing that job.
Yep. But yet you have people confront you when you do it like that and say, no, that's inexactimate. Oh, no. That overhead is inexactimate. How would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, what I find most of the time when we deal with situations that impact the price of the loss because of things like not being able to put a dumpster here and having to hand carry this or whatever the case may be, I normally get that covered. I mean, because the simple fact is, as long as we quantify it on that level from that investigation, there's nothing scary about investigation when we're talking to the other side.
So that's the difference, is that we get hired afterwards, but I can't. I have to talk.
No, you can't talk without your hand.
When we get hired afterwards, we go back and we dig that out forensically. Right. What if we could train contractors up front to realize that if they just grabbed the data from the project, if they just grabbed their time and attendance and they broke their time and attendance down to particular activities that we know are not included in Xactimate, like I got to truck people all the way from my camp in, and it's taking me an hour and 30 minutes. What if that was a punch on a timesheet, not just part of a 7 a.m. sign-in, all right, that signed out at 5 o'clock at night? What if it's a 7 o'clock sign-in and a 8:20, and that time in between is actually identified as travel time in the morning and travel time in the evening? Now, that means we don't have to go back and forensically investigate what was done. We got it captured as a part of a normal standard operating practice or procedure. If they do that, we don't have to argue theory. Because when we argue theory, someone's always going to say, oh, you know what? I just want to tell you that an extra 20 minutes of travel in each direction is 40 minutes a day. And my gosh, quick calculation means that's another $300,000 of labor on this project. You're just trying to milk the project. And I've had that happen in trial. So it's a weaker approach for us to measure those things as reasonable as our measurement may be and apply them in the most reasonable way. You still are exposed to people making that argument. But you know what? If the contractor keeps their time accurately and granularly, you don't have any of that. Nobody can really argue it because it's incurred.
I got asked that in trial.
Yep. I got asked that in trial 2 weeks ago.
And I said, so let's say you're in this court and that this attorney that's questioning me is wanting some Sumatra roast from Starbucks.
A bougie attorney. Okay.
You could go across the street and you could get No Name coffee. But if you wanted the Starbucks, you'd have to go 2 miles up the street, and that's going to take you 12 and a half minutes. And I said, and that's the difference in what's happening here. They can't do it any other way. If they have to do a certain thing, they're forced to do it with what the problems are on the ground.
Right.
So we had a loss in New Orleans years ago on Canal Street, and we had to start work at 9 p.m.
Yep.
And end work at 4 a.m. Clean up completely and have the equipment, all the heavy equipment, parked down the street a quarter mile in parking. And we had to also live load. We couldn't have dumpsters, so we had to bring a dumpster in twice a night. So we had to have all that mechanization to have boxes and then be able to dump so that we could move it off the higher floors down to lower. And that movement and that schedule that you had to do created a 47% increase on the price of that job.
Right.
But it got paid. Why?
Because you quantified it.
Because you quantified it all the way. And the thing
Yeah.
is, what I find that most people won't do, and I find this is the difference between good PAs and bad PAs too.
There's bad PAs? I didn't know that.
I do know there are some bad PAs. There's a couple different kinds of PAs. There's the PAs that do sign and drive. They just sign and drive away, and
Yep.
whatever they pay. And then there's the cabinet kickers, the people that said, "Hey, but I got you the cabinets."
Right.
And then there's those guys who actually do the job as a professional adjuster.
Right.
And I would say most of the people I work with are like that.
Well, because it does say they are public adjusters.
Yeah.
Lots of the industry, though, I think has lost the adjuster part of that.
Look, I listened to a plaintiff attorney just the other day say to an insured before a mediation, "Oh, we'll have to take that OSHA thing out of this estimate because we don't ever get that in insurance claims." Like,
And
I'm sorry. Does that
that is the
change the
plaintiff
law?
attorney telling the insured that. And
Okay.
here's the funny part. The person the insured is a retired OSHA inspector.
oopsies.
And the plaintiff attorney did not connect the dots that was the reality. And yeah.
Okay, guys, I was
What?
able to pull up the red line ASTM D7338 document. Herring, what you were talking about earlier is actually in 7.5 on-site inspection.
Yep.
What you're looking for here is 7.51 and 7.52, which is the inspection boundary. So it says, and I quote, "At a minimum, the inspection should include, within the scope of work, all areas of visible staining, discoloration, etc., areas potentially impacted by moisture problems of interest, and the sites from which the moisture may originate. May originate." And I'm going to skip forward just for clarification. You could read the full quote. I'll just attach it at the bottom. 7.52 is the informed inspection, which is really what you were trying to get at earlier, where it says, within the inspection boundary, all surfaces should be inspected to the extent feasible, including above suspended ceilings and inside pipe chase, attics, and crawl space. The exterior of the building and adjacent grounds should also be inspected for moisture intrusion, sites, and air leaks. And it just continues. This is a really good resource to have. But I love how it said to the extent feasible. You don't go looking someplace unless you have a good reason to do so.
But that's the trick. And that's where most people lose it, by the way.
It doesn't matter what it is. No matter what it is, it's all been driven by an ATSM, right? Everything that was built on those standards.
Yep.
So this is what I want to know from the both of you. So when we're actually down to just about 30 days till class. Isn't that exciting?
Terrifying and exciting.
Woohoo!
Wonderful for them because I know they're looking forward to coming. Always terrifying for us because, well, it's a challenge to do these things. We love it, but
it
it's
is a challenge, but you were worth it. You were worth it. We want you to know that.
My heart is warmed.
The thing that I'm most happy about the event is that, like my best success that I ever have happen with anybody I work with is having some time and intensity with them to understand their perspective, their position, their problems, and work on solutions. And I think that's the power of what we've got. Sweet and I have two different projects coming up where the whole notion of what we're doing is trying to figure out all those little problems on some very complex things so that nobody has any gotcha moments. And and the other thing, and I'm always reticent to say this, but this is true. Okay. I'm going to help you make more money. Not for doing anything wrong, but doing it right. Doing it righter than you're doing right now. I'm going to help you clear things faster. That's what we're doing. And I think, and that's exciting to me, because I like for people to make good money in this industry, because what we do is hard. It's often cruel. And people that you go to family reunions, and people ask you how the life insurance business is, because no one understands what you do for a living. No one understands the tigers you have to slay all the time.
I think that's part of the problem, though, Herring, is we've really stepped away. Actually, I'm not sure if a culture of insureds being homeowners, tenants, how about anyone who occupies a building, being generally not just educated, but knowing what they are entitled to. I don't think if that's ever actually happened, but I think everything would be better if everyone knew that they deserve a safe and healthy home. Honestly.
Yeah, I think that I feel for a lot of people in our industry, because they get sold a bit of like a bill of goods that is just irrational. And and like the 3-day dry, the 3-day dry, the Paul Davis 3-day drying
1978, 100 square feet. 100 square feet from an aquarium, which, by the way, made it category 2 because there's fish waste in it. But as long as it doesn't touch any walls and is only on carpet and concrete, and then in the small print on the bottom, it doesn't say we'll get it dry in 3 days. It says we'll only charge you for 3 days. We have an entire industry that got changed over that.
Yeah, it's like you always wonder how things get baked in the cake, but that
You can see
you got the French Quarter in New Orleans.
Mhm.
Most people don't know you have the Spanish Quarter across the Canal Boulevard, and that median between the road in between those two sections was the place that you could trade duty free. So that was called the neutral ground.
Oh,
And to this day, if you park on a median and get a ticket for it in New Orleans, it is a ticket for parking on the neutral ground.
wow.
Things get just baked in the cake. It's like mitigation companies don't get overhead and profit. Roofing doesn't get overhead and profit.
Yeah, they do.
There are
There are clients that do.
Yeah, but that's my point, though. It's this idea that all these very irrational things get baked in, and part of the reason they get baked in is because people aren't doing the investigation on the level that they need to do to validate overcoming those issues.
So let's do 40,000 feet real quick, because I know we're about out of time here. We said we go 30 minutes, and I think we're about there.
Yep.
But I think what's unique about what we're getting ready to do probably stems out of the fact that you and I can do what each other does, but we have predetermined, I don't want to say biases, but there's a particular way we'll lean when we do it. I tend to lean to data first. And then when I've got that all collected, I wander off into relational. You generally tend to start relational.
That's right.
And drill down for data. And here's what's so unique about what we're getting ready to do. One is really, really hindered and made weaker without the other. All right. If we don't take and ensure that we've connected with people and developed a relationship where they feel honored to the degree that their honorability will allow that, right? Heard and understood, and in adversarial, if it has to be a difference of opinion, it's not adversarial, it's hopefully cooperative. You can't do that without data. But I can't grab all this data it won't make any good if I don't have a receptive ear on the other end. So what I think is really unique about what we're getting ready to do is we have owners that are generally one way or the other. These are the kind of people that run companies. So we have really technically competent companies that probably lack the relational part. We have very relational companies that lack the technical parts. And in reality, if you want to be exceptional, if you want to be extraordinary, if you want to be the standout in your area, your region, is in the industry as a whole, both have to be done, and both have to be done well, which means if you can't do it yourself, you're going to have to find somebody else to do it and manage them as they do.
Well, and also, can I just add here that make it personal. I mean, this is the only way to really kind of put this into a frame that makes sense for most people. Doing substandard work is fine for most people when they're not directly affected by it. Like there's a huge difference. Oh,
sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. There's
that was cough worthy.
Yeah. There's a huge difference in between saying, okay, so would you want me to do this on your job? Do you?
If this was your mom, if this was your kid,
if this was your grandma, would you
assuming you
be
like
okay
her
with this? And half of it is knowing what you're doing, because most people don't. And this is why I don't go around just pointing fingers at people, telling them that they're doing an awful job. So a lot of them don't even know. You haven't even given them a chance to course correct, right? So when they get the chance, they're posed with the question, am I okay leaving it like this for somebody else if I was the person in this path? And personally, as someone who's personally convicted in that area, I cannot leave it any other way than the way that I would leave it for myself and my family. I can't.
You mean honor extends when people aren't looking?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it does. If for you it doesn't, I guess just like, get along with your day, and, I hope that you find happiness and peace and all that. But for me, I just can't.
So we're not looking for everybody. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody can come and learn something that would benefit from them.
Sure.
But who we're really excited about, so we're really excited about people who want to be exceptional, who want to differentiate, whether that's contractor or attorney or PA. The skills that we're working on are the kind of skills that are necessary when push comes to shove to get the job done the way it's supposed to and get paid for it. Because if it's one thing that both David and I know, the D2s, we understand that it's all about data and all about relationship, and both have to be managed, and neither one functions nearly as well without the other one. All right. We know how people get paid, and we know why they don't get paid because we watch it all day long, every day.
All day.
So if you want a different outcome than what you're currently doing, you're going to have to do something different than what you're currently doing. We're just suggesting that why invent the wheel when we have a really good one that goes really, really fast and is kind of super sexy. We know wheels.
I couldn't have said it better.
And if you think about this, it doesn't matter if you're attorney, IAPA, or restorer. There's a method of triage.
Right.
Every one of those disciplines can use that are very similar.
That create accountability. And so there's nothing to argue about.
Right. And so we set you up when we do this to not walk into any situation without core questions answered and documented.
Right.
And I think that's the magic. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to help you figure out how to have some better relationships with the people you got to have relationships with.
Yep.
That's what I do, is relationships.
Well, some people you can develop a relationship with where you can operate as peers. Other people you have to develop a relationship with where they understand how being less than honest with you will be an expensive proposition for them. Some people don't do well unless they have, consequence. Some people will self-govern responsibly. You have to be prepared for both.
I have a client. I have a client in Louisiana that takes all of his adjusters fishing. They fight to get his job. They fight to go. Adjust his job.
Right.
Of course, you
I
know.
want to go. I don't even like fishing, but that just sounds so pleasant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we are wearing. Well, I'm not wearing my bucket hat anymore. This man looks like he's about to go fishing.
I am. I'm on vacation, even though I can't be. My brain is on vacation.
Said
My
all
intellect
business
should-
owners ever for the entire span of existing time. Okay, so I'm gonna close us out because we have
Should we
things
hold
to
hands
do.
and pray? Or?
Please, no, but I mean, here's a cucumber.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I
Cucumber.
appreciate
Cheers.
that. Okay, cheers.
Mm.
Yeah, so we have all of us have places to be, people to meet, people to see. Herring has a really rough day ahead of him, so everybody pray for Herring that he doesn't die from heat stroke. And we really want to see you in class. Trust me,
We do.
I want to see you as well, because who else am I going to feed? Like, I need to feed somebody. Like, you need to come so I
Do
can
you feel
feed
the need for feed?
I do feel the need for feed. You need to show up so I can feed you.
Yummy food?
Yeah.
Mm.
Very yummy food.
Will
Okay?
breakfast have salmon?
Yes. First day is
Ooh.
bagel bar.
Salmon, capers, cream cheese, fresh chives.
Yep, you got it.
A
And
little bit of
coffee.
poblano pepper on top of that.
Guys, I brought in the
Mm.
big guns. I brought in coffee. Lots and lots of coffee for you. Okay. You cannot let me down. You have to show up for me if you're not going to show up for them.
You know, I learned that coffee is good for your gut health. I was
It
surprised.
Really?
is.
Yeah, that's it.
I was surprised.
Anyways.
All right, so on this will be our sign out. I hope that we can see the actual thing here. It says, "Get your facts first, and then you can distort them as you please." I always show this to attorneys. This is my deposition mug
This is my plant.
because they love making fun of me for that, and I'm like, no. The important part is get your facts first. So in reality, learn how to get your facts first. We're not suggesting that you distort them, but do figure out how to make a narrative that is progressive, tied to the truth, tied to the facts, and you will have different outcomes. So go do the right thing.
And we'll see you on the other side.
Bye.
Bye. Bye now.
Bye-bye.